Make your next move with American Express Business Platinum. Earn 5 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. And with a welcome offer of 150,000 points after you spend $20,000 on purchases on the card within your first 3 months of membership, your business can soar to new heights. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum. Amex Business Platinum. Built for business by American Express.
It's the Smucker's Uncrustables podcast with your host, Uncrustables.
Okay, today's guest is rough around the edges. Please welcome Crust.
Thanks for having me.
Today's topic, he's round with soft pillowy bread.
Hey.
Filled with delicious PB&J.
Are you talking about yourself?
And you can take him anywhere.
Why'd you invite?
And we are out of time.
Are you really cutting me off?
Uncrustables are the best part of the sandwich. Sorry, Crust.
Unfiltered discussions, unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Good evening and welcome to The Last Show with David Cooper. I'm Caitlin Green, filling in while David is off on vacation. Tonight, we're digging into the $65 billion doodle industry, and that's dogs, not drawings. We'll also ask whether laziness is actually just a social construct. I'm going to explore the conspiracy theory that Avril Lavigne has a body double by the name of Melissa. And right now, I'm joined by one of my very favorite people to talk to about tech. She is a best-selling author, a renowned media personality, speaker, moderator. She hosts the Amber Mac Show. It's a weekly podcast and Sirius XM show where she discusses the latest tech and digital news. I feel like there's just an inundation of tech and AI everything, and there's too many stories for me to keep track of. And Amber, your name pops into my head the second that I read a headline and think, I want someone's take on this. I really just want to be talking to you. So thank you for talking to me today, Amber Mac. It's lovely to have you on the show.
I am so excited to chat about all things tech, and I think you're exactly right. Even though this is my space and has been for many years now, I am overwhelmed because every day there is something new that people need to understand, and it has huge implications in our lives as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the AI moment is here officially. There's more news. It's proliferating at a rate faster than I think anyone could have ever imagined. I mean, except for the people who are very on the inside, like yourself. But for me, just like a member of the proletariat, I can't believe how much AI news there is, and I don't know what I should or shouldn't be paying attention to. I don't know what should excite me and what should scare me. So, yeah, we'll definitely touch on some AI stuff here. But on the fear factor side, I think there's been a renewed conversation now and a lot of content that I'm seeing around how much we should be sharing on social media. And this has all been sparked because of the Instagram Maps feature that Meta rolled out. And this was where a lot of people found out that they were sharing their location, perhaps without realizing they were doing so, because they had this Maps feature where the people you follow were available on a map. And instead of opting into the feature, you had to opt out. So from your inside view, what do you think people should be really wary of sharing on social these days?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think with that Instagram Maps feature, there certainly was a lot of news around that when it did launch. And Instagram had to do quite a bit of work to be able to kind of guide people through how to stay safe in terms of your information. As far as I understood it, that feature was in fact turned off. But if by chance you had ever turned it on, it could have been left on. And it got more confusing as the storyline went on. So I do want to say to people, location, I think, is probably one of the most critical things that you do want to protect, right? And I think that's something people forget about all the time. And Instagram isn't the only one. You know, if you think about Snapchat, for example, with their Maps feature, for years they've been promoting that. And that really allows people to know where you are at any given time if you just decide to share your location. So I think location to me is probably the number one thing that you have to be really careful about sharing. As much as it is tempting to do so, if you are sharing your location, I would keep that to a very small circle, and I would avoid publicly sharing that on bigger platforms, especially if you don't have a private account on Instagram, as one example.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, if they are, like you said, a public figure and you have a public account, and maybe some of these tech companies, they might not be guilty of, doing this for nefarious or dark reasons, but just that perhaps they take for granted how uninformed maybe the average person is about their settings. And so, yesterday on the show, I had kind of like a TikTok star. He's an incredible sketch comedian, and he does these viral impersonations of Ina Garten. And he recently experienced that he was sharing his location on this Maps feature. And a bunch of people who followed him, thankfully they were just harmless fans, started messaging him about locations that he was at, wondering if he was doing events there, what was going on, and they were DMing him. So that made him rethink a little bit about the personal stuff that he shares on social, because he has to be there. He has to be in the community on social for work. But yeah, location sharing, okay, I'm glad to know that this should be crossed off the list, because I try to avoid doing it. I also try to avoid sharing stuff in real time. And I'll have some people get confused. I'll share something and they'll assume that I'm there right now, or that I'm off on vacation, and I'll say, no, this is a later gram. So I tend to avoid posting my travels, especially in the moment, and I'll wait until I'm back home or somewhere else entirely to post it.
Yeah, I think the travel point is a key one, right? As much as it's exciting to get to a new city and a new hotel, and very tempting to post a selfie of yourself in front of a hotel with the name of the hotel, you really want to avoid those type of things. And I think you're exactly right. It's a good idea just to kind of pause and post something a little bit later. There are scenarios where you can post in real time. Like, for example, I just saw Oasis play. I mean, I was posting in real time with tens of thousands of other people, right? I don't feel as concerned about that type of thing. But I do think when you're traveling or going to specific venues or hotels or cities, you really want to think about delaying some of those posts, exactly like you said. Again, just to protect your privacy so people don't know exactly where you are at any given time.
Obviously, parents are hypersensitive to anything around their children, of course. And so something I see, and that I always freaks me out when I see it shared, is anything to do with a pickup or a drop off of your child, or also kind of the view exterior or view from your home, if you have children especially, because who knows who's following you. I just think about how many people are on social versus how many people we encounter in real life. And I do think that there continues to need to be a little bit of a shift in the way we think of risks in real life. Have been driven home to us thanks to shows like Unsolved Mysteries or crime dramas, but you're exposed to way more people online and through your phone than you ever would be in real life, and you're so cautious about encountering a stranger in real life. But if you're sharing the front of your kid's school, if you're sharing images of you, and maybe you're just trying to put together a compilation of your kid hugging you as they leave daycare, but I would be really careful again about the location piece of this as it relates to your kids.
Okay, so, and this is an even bigger deal now than ever before. And I don't want to freak parents out. I wrote a book on this topic years ago, and I think we all have to proceed with caution. But the one thing that worries me a lot about this topic right now is that we have so many AI chatbots that are able to easily take an image that has a building in it and identify that building, for example. These technology tools are just going to get more and more sophisticated. So you can imagine, if you are in fact posting a picture of your kid in front of their school or even in front of your home, how easy it will be in the days, weeks, and months ahead for anyone to take that photo and say, hey, tell me, based on the information where is this location, and even give you an address. I don't think we're that far off from that becoming a reality, which makes those photos where you are putting your kid in front of your house for the first day of school even more terrifying. Avoid doing that. Take a picture inside, or, with a tree in your backyard, whatever that might be. But I think because of the advances that we're seeing with AI chatbots, this issue is going to be even more problematic.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and what else do you see kind of on social that makes you go, maybe rethink that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. And I think one of the things that I see people doing a lot is kind of oversharing pictures of their kids, right? And listen, I get it. Like, I share photos of my son. He's now 16, and I'll share pictures once in a while. But at the end of the day, I think we really want to give our kids that option to decide how they show up in the online world, especially when they're really young, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we should take that away from them, unless, of course, as one example, that you have a private account where where you're only sharing that account with friends and family. And there's always a risk. I think we both know that. But you can kind of lock down your account so that it is a smaller circle of people. But I do see people, especially those people with large followings, who are sharing photos of their young children. And I'm not saying they're using them as props. I get it. I love being a mom. It's really wonderful. But I do think we have to be really careful about that oversharing piece, only because as that child grows up, all of a sudden it's going to be easier than ever to kind of paint a picture of things like, where they live, dig up these photos of their past. And we want to be able to make sure that, again, they can show up in that online space the way that they want to.
My guest right now is Amber Mack. She is the host of the Amber Mack Show, which is a weekly podcast, and SiriusXM show. She's discussing the latest tech and digital news with me. I want to get her thoughts a little bit more on AI and how people are turning to AI to help field their medical-related questions, and also a Japanese city that has proposed a 2-hour daily limit for smartphone use.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Change is always happening, but no matter what changes in 5 years, there's one thing that will stay the same: the price of your internet. With the Xfinity 5-year price guarantee, you get 5 years of the most reliable Wi-Fi, with our best equipment included, for a price that stays exactly the same. Restrictions apply. New residential customers only. Taxes and fees extra and subject to change. Most reliable Wi-Fi based on Open Signal Awards USA. Fixed Broadband Experience Report, August 2024.
The show that asks the questions other shows are afraid to ask. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Welcome back to The Last Show. I am Caitlin Green, filling in for David Cooper, and I'm joined by a best-selling author, renowned media personality, speaker, moderator. The list of accolades could go on. She really is just ultimately one of my very favorite people to talk to about tech and to help me break down all the latest tech stories, everything that I'm seeing circulate online, just help me break down what matters and how it's going to impact my day-to-day life. Amber Mack, I'm so happy that you're here, and I need your help figuring out why so many people are asking AI medical questions.
Yeah, this is a big topic, and I think more and more people are actually using AI chatbots to get diagnoses in terms of any issues that they may be facing. There's a couple of reasons for that, right? We know that it's harder than ever to be able to get access to a family doctor, so you're going to turn to whatever tools are available. The second thing is you're going to get an instant response. That's also not going to happen in the healthcare system that we're in today. So I appreciate and understand that that's taking place. If you do choose to do that, I think there's a few things that you need to be careful about. For example, if you were to, say, upload blood work to one of these chatbots, you want to be careful in terms of your privacy, because that is your personal information. And second to that, I think another thing that you really have to think about is that oftentimes these chatbots are really programmed so that they are agreeable, right? You see this all the time. If you were to paste a paragraph of text into ChatGPT, for example, and say, hey, what do you think? I mean, you're just going to get all this flattering language like, this is really well written, great job, you may want to change this. So chatbots tend to be agreeable. So if you're worried about having some type of ailment or illness, you could get yourself into a situation where the chatbot isn't being actually kind of objective in terms of how they are delivering the response to you. They may give you what you want to hear based on the type of prompts that you're putting in. This is a huge issue when it comes to our healthcare.
Yeah, and I also just think, there's such an obvious value, to me at least, and again, I'm no expert, but I want somebody who has a PhD reviewing my health information. I want someone who has not just gone through piles and piles and piles of data. I want someone who has some lived experience and some real ability when it comes to communicating results, to personalizing things. And that is ultimately, to me, the value of a medical professional. And I think that if you view engaging with, an AI chatbot as kind of not necessarily a form of entertainment, but just like medicine light, then maybe that's okay. Like this is far from medical, but I was bit by a fish or something while I was away at a cottage, and it left a pretty significant bite mark on my body. And I took a picture of it and I uploaded it to ChatGPT, and I gave the lake that I was on, what I was doing, and I told it the fact that I had seen some turtles around. And my big debate was this a turtle or was this a fish? And it basically said, I think this is a sunfish. It didn't break any skin, but I can see the teeth marks. Also noticed that I had red fingernails at the time and said, you know what, sunfish are curious. It probably saw your red fingernails, came in for a closer look, and wound up taking a bite of your leg. So I'm like, when the stakes are low and you're asking it about a turtle or a fish, I feel like that's a fair. But if you're looking for a distinct diagnosis, like God forbid it gets something wrong, and then you ignore a very serious medical condition.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I mean, like you said, there are times and places to be able to use some of these tools and technologies. So, for example, let's say you get a report from your doctor and there are certain terms that you don't understand. Maybe you get blood tests back and you want to be able to identify what exactly some of these words mean and you don't really understand them. Well, all of a sudden, I think some of these AI chatbots can be really great companion pieces to help you walk through what you're experiencing in terms of some of the language you don't know. But I think you're exactly right. You have to be careful about allowing that chatbot to get to the point where it's diagnosing you. I mean, the chatbots don't understand the context of anything, right? They don't have the history beyond maybe, a limited amount of information that you tell them, but they don't have the context of the situation either. So I am a big bullish believer in AI in our healthcare system, to be able to analyze scans to detect things like breast cancer, to help doctors in terms of allowing them to be more productive, get through their paperwork more easily. But I think at the end of the day, there's always a role for that human in the mix when it comes to your health, because that person has something the chatbots don't have, which is the ability to be able to think critically and to analyze what you're going through based on your history and the context of the situation.
I always see this happen. It tends to be like a headline that has surfaced, over my time in media every so often. And it'll be that there's like a death clock that's happening. It's a website where you input certain personal information and it's supposed to predict when you're going to die. It's very dark. Obviously, they're very popular because people become morbidly fascinated with them. And now, kind of along the same piggybacking on that, there are new forms of AI apps that will scan your face to predict your lifespan. And again, I don't know that there would be any doctor that would tell you to put a huge amount of stock into this.
Yeah, and listen, that's not the only type of technology that's doing that. So I've been wearing a Whoop band for many, many years. This is a type of wearable which I love because it measures my sleep and my stress and all these other details. But it also has this new feature, which is an aging feature, essentially. So it tells you how fast you're aging. Well, I think I'm going to age faster because it's giving me so much anxiety when it tells me that I'm aging more quickly. So this is a type of thing where you have to kind of weigh the benefits of what type of technology that you're using, because in those situations, it could just add more stress to your life. So we all have to be very thoughtful about how we approach this tech. And like I said, certainly a role when it comes to healthcare, but we can't let it kind of run away with our health in terms of any type of issues we have or the treatment as well.
Yeah. And to your point about the Whoop band, because my husband has worn one for a long time, and he's recently, after years of wearing it, has decided he may stop wearing it because his obsession with his sleep metrics was actually contributing to unhealthy sleep.
Yeah, and it happens, right? I was doing a speaking event a few months ago, and I kept, over the course of 2 nights, I kept getting these blood oxygen level alerts in my Whoop, and I thought I was dying. And so I walked over to a drugstore, and I actually bought a proper device to be able to detect my blood oxygen. It was perfectly normal. There were no issues. I did a bit of research. It looks like I potentially could have slept on my Whoop in a weird way where the sensors weren't picking everything up. But I thought I was dying over the course of 2 days during a professional engagement. So you know that these things do happen.
Amber,
I'm still wearing my Whoop and I love it, but we have to be careful too.
Yeah, like it's useful because it has shown him a lot of patterns then. And now that he has had it for years, I think he has a reasonable amount of data to suggest like, here's what helps you, working out. Here's what doesn't help you, alcohol. And I think now like he tends to know that negatively impacts his sleep versus waking up in the morning and without fail telling me what his sleep metrics were and then stressing out about it. And I was ultimately like, yeah, but how do you feel? If you've had kind of a crummy night's sleep according to your Whoop, but you really actually feel okay, then I don't think it matters that much.
Yeah, my husband and I, we've been wearing them for years. I'm not saying we have competitions, but,
But you do.
we do compete a little bit in terms of where we're at in terms of a good night's sleep. But I think you're exactly right. You kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. I will say that Whoop does some tremendous things, like lots of different wearables. And I think it teaches you things in terms of allowing you to see patterns in data.
Yes.
So for example, if you are someone who drinks even, lightly or moderately, you will see in your Whoop that you do not have a good night's sleep on those nights that you're drinking, even if it's just a couple of drinks. So you can learn from some of this data, but I don't think it should allow us it should take over in terms of dictating how we live our lives.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is really useful, like you said, for identifying harmful patterns. Alcohol is definitely one of them. I have a neighbor who said the exact same thing. He has a Whoop as well. And when he started watching his sleep metrics and his HRV, his heart rate variability, he noticed the negative effect that even 1 or 2 beers would have on him. And it really helped him make an informed decision to cut back on how much he was drinking. And for certain portions of the year, he stopped drinking altogether. And he really notices a meaningful difference in his health. So yeah, balancing the good with the obsessive, I think is going to be really, really important.
It's important. And, at the same time as I, have a couple of complaints about some of the data pieces, I will say a couple of years ago, I needed to have surgery and I took all of my Whoop data and I gave it to my surgeon, and she was able to take that data and really demonstrate to her team that, hey, maybe they should bump me up a little bit in terms of my surgery date, because I showed the data that really demonstrated a decline in my quality of life based on these really terrible metrics that were coming out of my Whoop. So there's an example of using the data in a really efficient way versus relying on the data and just becoming more stressed during that process.
This is The Last Show. I'm Caitlin Green. I've been joined by one of my favorite people to talk to about tech, Amber Mack. You can catch her weekly podcast and Sirius XM show, appropriately titled The Amber Mack Show. She's going to discuss the latest tech and digital news. So if you want more of her, please follow her. You can go to her website. You can follow her on social media, and I'll include all the pertinent links in our show notes because, of course, in addition to a radio show, we too are a podcast. Thank you so much, Amber.
Thank you so much.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Eczema isn't always obvious, but it's real. And so is the relief from Ebglyss. After an initial dosing phase, about 4 in 10 people taking Ebglyss achieved itch relief and clear or almost clear skin at 16 weeks. And most of those people maintain skin that's still more clear at 1 year with monthly dosing.
Ebglyss, lebrikizumab LBKZ, a 250 milligram per 2 milliliter injection, is a prescription medicine used to treat adults and children 12 years of age and older who weigh at least 88 pounds or 40 kilograms with moderate to severe eczema, also called atopic dermatitis, that is not well controlled with prescription therapies used on the skin or topicals, or who cannot use topical therapies. Ebglyss can be used with or without topical corticosteroids. Don't use if you're allergic to Ebglyss. Allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Eye problems can occur. Tell your doctor if you have new or worsening eye problems. You should not receive a live vaccine when treated with Ebglyss. Before starting Ebglyss, tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection.
Searching for real relief? Ask your doctor about Ebglyss and visit ebglyss.lilly.com or call 1-800-LILY-RX or 1-800-545-5979.
Keep listening to The Last Show with David Cooper, because the alien invasion can wait. The Last Show with David Cooper.
It's The Last Show. I'm Caitlin Green in for David Cooper, here to let you know that laziness does not exist, at least according to my next guest. He's a social psychologist, clinical associate professor at Loyola University in Chicago, and the author of several books like Unmasking Autism, Unlearning Shame, and Laziness Does Not Exist. Dr. Devin Price, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Hi, Caitlin. Yeah, thanks for having me.
I have been called lazy on many a report card, not directly, but lots of the language that teachers would use around, like, spends more time talking to her friends in class, or has a hard time focusing, or I just found myself, I felt mislabeled because I don't feel like I suffered necessarily from an issue around my work ethic, but I think that the structure of school for me, it didn't work. I saw other kids, like my classmates, they really thrived in an environment where they were forced to sit in a desk and listen and learn through memorization only, but that just wasn't me. And it wasn't that I wasn't hardworking. I just was like, this doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, that it is a very artificial environment, right? The schooling environment. It was made to train people for industrial production where you just sit in one place all day long. And one, that's not what most of the workforce looks like. And two, that's not what human life is for the majority of us and what we find motivating. So what I've consistently found is that a lot of people have that experience that you're describing of being labeled as lazy by teachers, and it really chases them around and really can make them really beat themselves up. Really common among ADHDers who they just have a very, yes, hello. I've actually suggested before that we think of ADHD as just being a very socially motivated person. That's why ADHDers benefit from body doubling so much, like having another person working next to them helps them focus and work. And that's not unusual. Like, we are social creatures. It's really not a defect to need support to remain motivated and on task.
I'm so happy that there are doctors like yourself who are now co-signing something that always felt inherently true to me, and that is that I don't think it's laziness. I think that laziness is kind of an unfair term when it's applied to so many people so broadly. And it also, if you hear that enough about yourself from external sources, it kind of becomes something that you feel like defines you. And I think it's unfair. And I was, I'm sort of unofficially diagnosed with ADD, like my doctor thinks that I probably have that. And I think women, I'm a millennial, and so women of my age cohort, we were frequently not really diagnosed. I mean, if you weren't the boy in class who was bouncing off the walls, you were kind of left in the lurch, and no one really explored a unique way that perhaps you learn, or a different educational tools that should have been there to support you. But then, I, for me, went into drama or a class that was more geared towards performance and just physically getting up and moving around. And all of a sudden, I'm a straight A student.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, laziness reflects such an incuriosity about what's happening inside for the person. If they're not staying on task, why aren't they staying on task? If they're procrastinating on an assignment, the bane of the ADHDer, why are they procrastinating? Do they not know how to get started? Is the task too big and vague, and it needs to be divided into smaller chunks, and there needs to be a timeline with regular accountability? Instead, a lot of times it's just really deeply culturally ingrained in us, whether it's the workplace, a person who's sleeping on the street who doesn't have a home, or a student who's struggling and not getting enough support. Rather than asking ourselves, like, as a society, what can we do to get that person the support? We just say, oh, they're lazy. It must be this moral failing.
Yes, it is. It does ultimately feel like it is kind of labeled as a moral failing. And it often starts for people when they're in school, because it's kind of like the first place where you're asked to sort of sit down and abide by everyone else's like version of how things should be going and different metrics for success. And then, of course, it goes on to continue in the workplace. So how do you see in your research and in your work, how do you see this like laziness label pop up in the workplace, and how does it negatively impact workers, and how does it negatively impact, I would say, like employers? Like, I don't think it stands to benefit anyone, the individual or the corporation even.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's talk about the pandemic, and let's talk about remote work. That's one of the biggest places where myths about laziness drive the decisions that organizations make, even when it goes completely against the data. So what we found consistently across a bunch of different industries is in 2020, worker productivity went up by about 40% in a ton of different sectors. And that's because people could work on their own schedule. They didn't have a commute. They didn't have to like go buy an overpriced lunch downtown. They could stay at home with their kids. They could take a walk. They could do the laundry. And people are actually more productive when they're given that amount of autonomy and trust. And yet, I'm sure many people listening to this, they've had that experience of they were dragged back into the office, right? Maybe kicking and screaming, regardless of whether they wanted to or not. And we have seen pretty much a matching decline in productivity for industries that have forced people back into the office. Now, of course, some people like having a physical work environment that's separate from home. That's fine. I would say the data points to like give people what works best for them. But we really see consistently that managers and companies choose to surveil their employees, to use key logging software, to micromanage people, and to force them to all work the same set of hours per day in the same physical location. When we know the data shows that does not make people more productive. People are productive for a couple of hours per day. That's when the majority of work gets done for people. And the rest of that time, if you just force people to sit at a desk all day long, you're not getting any additional return on investment. You're just getting a lot of pissed off, tired people who are having to fake being productive when they're not.
And I think it probably contributes to the higher rates we're seeing in employee burnout. So many people are feeling burnt out. And I always think that kind of like the cudgel of laziness and come back into the office and like you said, those keystroke monitors, all these things also completely ignore the fact that in the last 20 years, everyone has started having their work email on their devices. You're on your device all the time. Your managers can reach you so many different ways. And for many people as well, social media has become a part of their job instead of just being, back in the day when you would have Facebook, it was just a place where you uploaded one too many photos of your night out. Now it is actually a part of working for many people is to be on social media. So this insidious way in which hustle culture moves into your life and means that you don't really have the set on and off times that you used to with the workday, but you're also expected to go back into work, go back into the office, function at a very high level for the full 8 hours a day that you're there. And then your off hours, you're also still supposed to be available thanks to your device.
Yes. In the research literature, we call what you're talking about work-life interference, that there is this bleed from digital technology. And, it keeps happening with technology where it, in theory, would streamline something and make our lives easier. We're getting more done in less time. But what that seems to just do is it just ratchets up the expectations for how much you do and accomplish and how available you are. So email was already a source of stress for a lot of people for a long time.
Yeah.
And now we have Slack and Microsoft Teams and just this constant march of you need to be performing your work persona on social media as well. And even potentially, like I've even heard from bartenders who they're expected to draw in customers from posting on social media during their shifts. Like it touches every industry from like white collar jobs, service industry jobs, and beyond. And that is a performance. That is being on all the time. And that is really draining of people's cognitive capacity. As I already said, the research suggests people can really only focus on a work task for 3 to 4 hours per day in terms of like what is actually sustainable long term. Of course, you can have an all-nighter, these occasional pushes, but people cannot be on all the time. And when they're expected to be, that's where you have people feeling like they can't ever pay attention, that they're always kind of detached and dissociated and stressed. They're burning out. And this stuff takes a very serious toll. Burnout is not just, oh, I'm exhausted today and I can sleep it off. For a lot of people, it means their productive capacity goes down and it never recovers because it is really the body and the mind wearing down from excessive stress.
Oh, that's such a perfect place to end this conversation. Thank you so much, Dr. Devin Price, for joining me on the show today. Please check out his book, Laziness Does Not Exist. Also, you've done a lot of great work in the areas of autism. You have a book called Unmasking Autism and another one called Unlearning Shame. I think these are all such valuable topics. So again, thank you for talking to me today.
Yeah, glad to talk about it.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
So good, so good, so good.
Ready to rack to school and save big? Get to your Nordstrom Rack store today for thousands of deals from just $20.
Because I want to look fresh.
How did I not know Rack has Adidas?
I got a new backpack.
Score everyone's favorite denim, sneakers, boots, and activewear from Nike, Levi's, Steve Madden, Madewell, and Free People. Great brands, great prices. Everyone's got a reason to rack. Shop Nordstrom Rack and make it the best school year ever.
Your above-average intelligence brought you here. It deserves above-average absurdity. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
I'm so excited to welcome back travel writer and host Natalie Preddy, who is here with a personal story that proves travel isn't just about ticking off places on your to-see list. She's writing about what happens when you revisit those destinations and places that once meant the world to you years later. We're also going to dive into the bigger picture together, why travel isn't just about where you go, but how much it changes you as a person. And Natalie, I also wanted to talk about an article that you have coming up for Elle Magazine. This is so cool. It is about you revisiting a place that holds a special place in your heart. So tell me a little bit about that.
I'm actually working with Expedia on this. They dropped their island hot list
Mhm.
this year, and Koh Samui is on one of them.
Ooh, in
Now,
Thailand.
in Thailand.
Yep.
So, a long, long time ago, again, I will not reveal the exact amount of years. I lived in Thailand, and I was a very different person than I am now, and I was backpacking and
Full moon
ended
parties?
up. I went to a couple full moon parties. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I did. Yeah, I was young and single, very single, and I had
Mhm.
a fantastic time. But now I'm gonna be revisiting, these islands with my husband, and it is an article about reflection and how we as people change. I'm going back with a husband, 3 children, a mortgage, and it's revisiting these places that once felt like they defined us. But are we changing? Did the spaces change? Our relationships with the space? Just really reflecting on that.
Mhm.
And actually, the guys who introduced me to my husband, I met on a beach in Thailand, and we're gonna go to that beach, and it's gonna be amazing.
So
But
it's a kind of like a little full circle moment.
it's a very, very much a full circle moment in my life, and I'm really looking forward to exploring that with my husband, but also very as a traveler as well, how places change us,
Yeah.
in our lives and how we change places, in return.
And the things I recall, I mean, when you travel somewhere, you really are changed by the experience and you can recall being in that place so viscerally. I mean, I will forget stuff that I do every single day, the trials and tribulations of my daily life, but I can describe in great detail the hotel I stayed at in Walt Disney World as a kid. And
Yeah.
so I think it is really valuable to go back to these places where you were a very different person in a different stage of life and see how it makes you
Yes.
feel, and for you to write about all the different feelings that unearths. And I do, because you said Koh Samui, because you said Thailand, I have to wonder what the impact of the White Lotus is going to have on tourism in Thailand. I mean, I must imagine that if you are featured in a season of the HBO hit series White Lotus, for anyone who hasn't watched it,
Yep.
previously they had Hawaii, then they had
Sicily.
Sicily, then they had Sicily,
Yes.
and the most recent season was in Thailand. Like, they must be feeling that.
Oh, absolutely, and, Koh Samui especially, I mean, when I was there, however many years ago, Koh Samui was the more commercial island. I
Mhm.
think there was a Starbucks there, and, um, that was back then. So, now I can only imagine how packed that is, and it is the effect of media. Remember The Beach? Do you remember the
Yes,
movie
I
The Beach with
loved
Leonardo DiCaprio?
that
Yeah.
movie.
So,
Tilda
after
Swinton?
that. Oh.
Yeah. The soundtrack, the Moby soundtrack?
Oh,
Yeah.
everything about it, with even the All Saints song that went with it. Um, Everything about that movie. So, when that came out, there was this surge of backpackers going through Thailand, right? And I was probably part of that surge.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, my motivations for going were very different. The island was very different. Penang, which is where I ended up, living for 3 or 4 months, they didn't have paved roads. Now they have paved roads. So, as outside of the physical changes of an island, how much have has their infrastructure changed? Has their tourism industry adapted for all of these people? I know that, again, talking about reefs, I know that they were having problems because there were so many people going through when it came to visibility and diving and sea life. And I actually think the pandemic was really good for sea life in Thailand. I think the reports that reefs were revitalized and sea creatures, sea life was coming back to these spaces. So I'm very interested to see how the place has changed physically, and of course, with that will be, um, my own connection, being there with my husband. It's just it's wild, and I can't believe that, and that young Natalie is completely gobsmacked and completely blown away by, this my story, what I thought my life was gonna be when I was, in my 20s, and where I am now. And it's, it's amazing. It's wonderful. I wouldn't have changed a moment, good or bad. And I all of it, everything that's happened has brought me to where I am now, regardless of if it was good or if it was bad. And where I am now is amazing. And I can't wait to be back in this place that really started my wanderlust, my solo wanderlust, I
Yeah.
should say, um, with my husband. It's gonna be wild.
When does the article come out?
November, it'll be in Elle Canada.
Oh my gosh. Well, I can't wait to read it. And November, okay, so also on that note, just as I think of it, when is the best time as a Canadian who likes to escape winter? When should I
Mhm.
be booking my winter travel? Is there a window within which you can maybe have a deal? Are there any deals to be had anymore? I don't know.
Yeah, so, I'd say if you're looking for, like, the beginning of next year, so
Yeah.
January, February,
Yes,
I would
exactly.
start booking November.
Okay.
If you are looking to go away at Christmas, now, do it
Okay.
now.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, because prices are just gonna go up. There are always deals. There are always deals. I always say if you have a specific um, hotel chain that you like to travel with, go to their website.
Mhm.
They will have deals that you won't find anywhere. This is the same information that travel agents are going to have. Of course, package deals. They'll always be, your Expedia and RedTag. They will have deals. And but if you have a talking about travel agents, it's always good to just if you have a travel agent to let them know what you're thinking about because it's literally their job
Mhm.
to figure out what the best travel deals are. And I'm not sure about the rest of the country, but specifically in Ontario, there are insurances that are automatically included when you book
Oh.
through a travel agent.
Oh, good to know. And do you think that you're seeing like a serious decline in travel to the US probably as we head into snowbird season?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of people are even selling their homes in
Mhm.
Florida. Um, People are looking elsewhere for and well, they can't. I mean, with all of the laws about even living in the States, and
Mhm.
getting citizenship and things like that. I mean, people are saying, I don't even want to go there. It's not
Yeah.
worth it.
It's not worth the
It's
risk.
not worth the risk. It's not worth the hassle, the extra fees, all of the paperwork. And we're seeing more people head to the Canary Islands or Portugal or, Central Europe. Not Europe, Central America.
Yes. Yeah,
Central
yeah, yeah.
America, the Caribbean, these Lesser Antilles, these smaller Caribbean islands, Panama, Colombia.
They're gonna feel the
You know,
overflow from people
they
who
are
are
definitely
abandoning their snowbird locations in the US. So
100%.
probably get on your bookings and be aware of all of these do's and don'ts because you don't wanna get there. And I'm also hearing about people actually who are Americans who are cosplaying as Canadians.
It's true. It's true. Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, I will be rightfully putting a Canadian flag all over my luggage, and it won't be stolen valor. Thank you so much for joining me today. Travel expert and host Natalie Preddy. You can catch her on Breakfast Television. Please catch her article coming up in November in Elle Magazine. It was such a pleasure speaking with you. I cannot wait to book my next trip.
Happy travels.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Checking off the boxes on your to-do list is a great feeling. And when it comes to checking off coverage, a State Farm agent can help you choose an option that's right for you. Whether you prefer talking in person, on the phone, or using the award-winning app, it's nice knowing you have help finding coverage that best fits your needs. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Exploring both interstellar and interpersonal space-time continuums. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Welcome back to The Last Show with David Cooper. I'm Caitlin Green, filling in while he's away on vacation, and it's time for a segment that I have been very excited to take part in for the first time. It's Conspiracy Corner, and I'm joined by a cultural history professor at Humber Polytechnic and co-host of the podcast, the Uncover Up Conspiracy Cast, Professor Nathan Radke. Thank you so much for joining me a skeptic, to combine an area that I regularly engage in, which is pop culture, with an area that you're an expert in, conspiracies.
Well, thanks for having me on and welcome to the show.
That's great. So for those with a healthier algorithm than probably my own, who are unfamiliar with celebrity conspiracies, what are some like big examples you can give, and how do they kind of start?
I mean, here's the thing about us and celebrity. There's two topics that our society has like a very odd relationship with. And one of them is celebrity. The other one is death. We struggle with death and we're obsessed with celebrity. So it shouldn't really be a really big surprise that there are some very odd beliefs that circulate around about that sort of intersection between celebrity and death. I mean, in our pop culture, our celebrities kind of hold the place that the gods of Olympus held in ancient Greece.
Yeah.
They're these elevated beings that we idolize and we look up to, and they appear to be larger than life. But the truth of it is, they're humans, just like us, and that means they're mortal. It's funny, this is a thing, though, that's gone back like thousands of years. In 68 CE, the Roman Emperor Nero took his own life, and for years afterwards, people claimed that it was all conspiracy, that he had faked it, that he wasn't really dead, or that he was going to come back to life. So this is something that humans have always been doing. And now, because of obviously social media and regular media, there's just so much more space for those kind of conspiracy theories to flourish. And so why don't we start off by talking about a classic one, the idea that Paul McCartney is actually dead.
Yeah, that old chestnut, the Paul is dead of it all. I mean, I remember hearing my parents kind of talking about this, and it struck me even when I was much younger as being completely unbelievable. So why do people believe it?
Yeah, it does seem pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
The problem with conspiracy theories is they almost always seem ridiculous, and most of them are ridiculous and most of them aren't true, but every so often you'll come across a ridiculous conspiracy theory that actually is true.
Yeah.
And of course, the classic examples are things like MKUltra, or that the American government was going to nuke the moon in the 1950s. Like, there are some ridiculous things that actually happen. And so we still have to give everything like a little bit of attention and see if there's evidence for it. So the claim for this one was November 1966, at the height of the Beatles' popularity, the story goes that Paul McCartney, bass player of the Beatles, gets into an argument with his bandmates, drives off in a huff, crashes his car, and has his head cut off. And that's the story.
Okay.
Now, in some versions, he's also picked up a hitchhiker named Rita before the accident.
So specific.
Very specific, and there's reasons for that specificity, as we'll get into. And then, rather than put Beatles fans through the trauma of finding out that Paul was dead, and also, of course, the Beatles were making a lot of money, the record label and the remaining Beatles hastily put together a Paul McCartney lookalike contest, and then the winner was a man named William Campbell, who then went on to pretend he was really Paul McCartney, presumably not only in public appearances, but also with, I guess, Paul's family and girlfriend.
That's what I was going to say. So he just continues to do this. He's like a full body swap in, and even Paul's mom is going to be none the wiser.
I mean, you've already hit on like one of the big weaknesses of all of these conspiracy theories. We think of celebrities as people who exist just out in media, but they exist as people. And so in order for something like this to actually happen, and even if you say, okay, fine, the Beatles were making an awful lot of money, so maybe there was an interest in keeping them going, you would have to go to his family and say, listen, could you do us a favor? Your loved one is dead, head cut right off.
Yeah.
And what we're going to do is we're going to give you this new guy who won a contest. And if you could just be like married to him, or think of him as your son or as your friend for the rest of his life, like, we would really appreciate it.
Yeah, do us a solid and just don't grieve at all, and instead just get caught up in this entirely ridiculous lie solely to sell records.
Yeah, exactly. And so as soon as you think about that, you think, okay, well, this is absurd and it's not possible. So then what is the evidence? Why do people believe it?
Yeah.
And of course, there's no eyewitness testimony. There's no hospital records. There's none of that stuff that you would want to actually believe a theory like this. Instead, all of the evidence comes from like song lyrics and album covers and photographs of Paul McCartney's face. Like with song lyrics, if you play Revolution No. 9 backwards, famous weird Beatles song,
Yep.
sort of sounds like they're saying, "Turn me on, dead man."
Or you could just be high.
Or you could just be high. I mean, that plays a role in this, because what's happening here What's definitely happening here is that we have this sort of capacity. The amazing human brain has this capacity to find patterns in meaningless nonsense. Sometimes it's called patternicity. And of course, if you have been, say, smoking cannabis, then that part of your brain is more active. It's one of the reasons people enjoy cannabis. And so, absolutely, the fact that people were smoking weed in the 1960s 100% plays a role in the fact that somebody would be listening to, say, A Day in the Life, and they'd hear the lyrics, "He blew his mind out in a car. He didn't notice that the lights had changed." And then immediately say, of course, it's all right here.
Like it is to me, I just hear so many of these things and think, I too have smoked too much weed. Like that seems very much on its face to be what has happened. I like that people are curious and that they want life to be more exciting and kind of nefarious than it is. Maybe they're extremely bored. And so conspiracies is kind of a cure for boredom, or maybe to give people like a little added edge to their personality or their identity. That really kind of speaks to me more than thinking that Paul McCartney was beheaded.
Well, I mean, this is such an important aspect of conspiracy theory that I think doesn't get enough attention, is that they do tend to be more interesting. They're more satisfying in a lot of ways. When I talk to people who believe things that are clearly demonstrably untrue, like that the world is flat or something like that, and we wonder, what is the motivation to believe this? It does make the world more interesting.
Yeah.
And in some ways, it makes the world feel safer, because all conspiracy theories are about somebody being in control. Even if it's some evil organization of shape-shifting lizards or whatever, that's still less scary than living in a world filled with chaos and coincidence and randomness.
Yeah. And also I do wonder if there's an element too of, people don't necessarily want to take accountability in their own life. They don't want to believe that they're in control. So bad things that happen could be the result of their own decisions. Instead, it has to be about this greater, higher power that's working against them in some way. So it's like, well, I had nothing to do with this. This is some sort of big wizard behind a curtain that's controlling everything. And that's why X, Y, and Z has gone wrong for me personally. The other thing is that celebrities do genuinely cover things up. And so I think that because they're such big public figures, we've got no short list of examples of celebrities covering up relationships, covering up scandals, covering up drug use, covering up their sexuality. So I think because there is a lot of secrecy to maintain a certain public image for celebrities, that there is already like a taste and a market for this type of gossip. And it doesn't go away, because kind of in Hollywood, nothing is as it seems very often. But I don't think it's usually to the tune of Paul McCartney being dead or Tupac still being alive, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And because there's so much noise that comes from the celebrity world, there's so many things for us to pick through. In the case of Paul McCartney, there are so many song lyrics that you can go through and listen to, like I'm the Walrus or Strawberry Fields or any of these songs that have a lot of weird imagery in them. And in that weird imagery, you can find the story that you're looking for. And then, of course, we have all sorts of photographs. We have sorts of album covers, and the album covers are strange and artsy. And you can pore over those and say, oh, wait a second. On the Abbey Road album, there's a VW Bug with license plate LMW28IF, which clearly must stand for Linda McCartney Weeps, 28 years old if he had lived.
Oh my gosh.
It all makes sense.
I would never, I'm just not the kind of person where I ever look at an album cover and choose to dissect a license plate. That's clearly not how my brain works, but that's a real head scratcher.
And again, it's such a great example of how our brains are capable of just taking whatever just sort of random nonsense background noise there is, and fitting it into the story that we think we're trying to figure out.
My guest is Professor Nathan Radke. He is the co-host of the podcast, The Uncover Up Conspiracy Cast. He is a cultural history professor, and I'm going to steal some more of his time to get into one of my very favorite celebrity conspiracies that has to do with a Canadian queen, Avril Lavigne.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Lowe's knows that no matter your paint project, saving is at the top of your list. That's why when you shop today, you can buy one, get one free select Valspar and HGTV Home by Sherwin-Williams one-coat coverage interior paints via rebate. Shop these deals in-store or online today at Lowe's. We help, you save. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. Discount taken at time of purchase. See sales associate for details. Offer valid 8/21 through 9/3.
broadcasting from the intersection of chaos and more chaos. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Welcome back to The Last Show with David Cooper. I am Caitlin Green, filling in while David is on vacation, and we're back with Conspiracy Corner, where I'm joined by a cultural history professor at Humber Polytechnic and the co-host of the podcast, the Uncover Up Conspiracy Cast, dun dun dun, Professor Nathan Radke. Thank you for staying with me to talk about why Avril Lavigne is believed to have a body double. This has got to be one of the wildest conspiracy theories I've seen circulate on social media. It seems crazy to me, but perfectly palatable to a lot of other people. So can you break down what this is?
Yeah, no, I think this is going to make both of us feel pretty old, but I might have to explain who Avril Lavigne is. Because
yeah, you're right.
She a pop singer who was extremely popular about 20 years ago.
Yep.
I mean, her debut album was a monster hit in 2002, sold like hotcakes. But according to conspiracy theorists, Lavigne didn't get to enjoy this success for very long, since it's argued that, tragically, she ended her own life in 2003 due to the pressures of fame. And then the claim is, again, like the Paul McCartney situation, the record company, not wanting to miss out on future album sales, trained her body double named Melissa to take over for her. And so again, like we saw with Paul McCartney,
Wait, hold on. Just 1 second. For everyone who's listening, Nathan just held his fingers up to his eyes to indicate that, like, this is actually so dumb it's giving you a headache. So if you're thinking the same thing, you're not alone. Even the conspiracy professor is with you.
Oh, yeah. The bridge of my nose is getting a good rubbing.
Yeah. Okay, continue on.
And so, again, we are to assume that Lavigne's family and her friends were just given this new person and said, you know, this is Avril now. We appreciate your help. And again, so as evidence, fans have pointed to the way that Lavigne's appearance and music and fashion have all changed dramatically since that debut album.
Dun, dun, dun.
Exactly.
God
if anything
forbid
deserves
you
a
go
musical
through a
sting,
makeover.
it's that. Yeah, she used to wear pants, but now wears dresses and skirts.
Yeah.
Now, this could be because she's been replaced by a double, or it could be because people don't realize how the music industry works and how performers are used as a product to be focus grouped and tweaked and to try to keep up with trends and to push trends. I mean, before Avril was famous, she was planning on being a country star, and it was her musical label that put together a pop-punk backing band for her. And so even before she was famous, this sort of thing was already happening because fashion changes, pop stars change with it. The other thing is she was 18 when that first album came out. If you stop developing your taste and your style at 18, you're going to be in for a rough adulthood.
Yeah, I look back at photos of what I was wearing and doing and who I was friends with even, 10 years ago, let alone when I was 18. And it's completely different. And I also think the funny thing about the body double portions of these conspiracies is that we're also assuming that quote unquote Melissa or Paul's stand-in would have had no life of their own, no family, and they were just sitting here hatched out of an egg yesterday, ready to step into some celebrity's existence.
Yeah, that's another aspect of it, is that Melissa presumably had also family and friends, and I guess they would have also been approached and said, listen, do us a favor, pretend that your daughter, your sister, your friend never existed because we need her to sell some albums.
Like, no one should be buying this. I am a bit scared of it. The other thing is, I think, and I could be wrong, but I think stan culture plays a role in this, which is to say, extreme fans of any celebrity, because they obviously hyperfixate on any change. They want to explain it. And the celebrity has a very outsized role in the life of a quote unquote stan. And so they are probably very vulnerable to any of these conspiracy theories because they're just so focused on something that has no place or bearing in their day-to-day life, even though it consumes much of their time and attention.
Yeah, I mean, we build what's called parasocial relationships with famous people, which means that it's the illusion of a relationship. It's completely one-sided, of course, because they have no idea who we are.
Yeah.
And so then when a celebrity changes, or they say age, or maybe get plastic surgery, then people who have that kind of strange parasocial relationship with that celebrity say, well, I don't recognize them now. This is strange. This isn't the person I know. Whereas, of course, the truth is they don't know them at all. And the other thing is, it's great to look back at sort of the genealogy of these conspiracy theories to see where they started out.
Yeah.
This one we know, it started off in a Brazilian blog in 2011, and the blog was titled Avril Esta Morta. And then a BuzzFeed reporter was visiting Brazil a few years later and retweeted the blog, and it completely blew up. But the thing is, the original blog post and the retweet were meant as jokes about how easy it is to create an online conspiracy theory about a famous person, and then had the exact opposite effect.
That's the thing that I've noticed with the Avril Melissa thing, is that a lot of people have understandably accepted this as being just ridiculous and funny. And the Melissa of it all has become part of Avril's lore. I feel like she's actually addressed this in interviews. I feel like she's laughed about it. And so that part of it I kind of appreciate. But of course, there's going to be these dark corners of the internet that starts to engage with this as if it's a fact. And they really think so little of the recording industry that they believe that they would have body doubles for people to sell what exactly? I mean, I don't know. Like, Avril goes on tour sometimes, but it's not as though this is a Paul McCartney level figure. It's not as if this is Elvis, right? Like, I don't know why anybody would be I don't know why a record industry would be so invested in this, because she's only released so many singles. It seems insane.
Yeah, and the other thing that happens, of course, every time a famous musician dies, what happens to their album sales? They immediately skyrocket.
Exactly.
So if anything, they'd have more interest in bumping off musicians rather than replacing them with doubles.
Well, don't go starting a new conspiracy, because that one I could actually get into.
Right. You probably should try to steer clear of that as much as possible.
Yeah. So, okay. Have any of these has anything about this, like the deaths or the, not so much the body doubles, but is there a celebrity conspiracy that you recall as ever being proven true? I mean, I really don't, other than like the gossip around certain celebrities and the, like, are they secretly gay, or have they been cheating on their spouse? Those things I've seen that happen a lot, but I don't think anyone has successfully faked their own death.
No, not that I've ever come across, although there have been some pretty bizarre celebrity conspiracies that turned out to be true. I mean, all we have to do is look at sort of the ongoing trials with somebody like Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, Sean Combs.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
I mean, that's some horrifying stuff. And allegedly, that isn't even conspiracy at this point. Allegedly, that is something that is grounded in fact. And that's as horrifying as many of the fake ones. And so again, because there are things like that in reality, we have to say, okay, sometimes these bizarre, twisted, and in that case, like alarming truth is real.
Yeah. And I think those cover-ups and the extent of many of those cover-ups of people's bad behaviors, I mean, Weinstein comes to mind for, the whole Me Too thing. And then, of course, the Jeffrey Epstein of it all, which we could go on and on forever about. Those things and the cover-ups around them that do seem to be happening, and how many people do terrible things. And there is a whole industry designed to keep them in power because it would be beneficial for people, or at the very least, they would be labeled complicit. And so they don't want to get caught up in this, so they hide it. Like, when that stuff happens, I think it allows for the ridiculous to become mainstreamed, along with the stuff that is genuinely bad and has been happening for a long time and has been covered up.
Yeah, and this is another one of the dangers of the false conspiracy theory, because there are genuinely some things that need to be exposed. But when all of the oxygen in the room is taken up by ridiculous nonsense, then there isn't as much time to actually dig into the things that are really happening, because there really are some very terrible aspects of the music industry. We don't necessarily have the media literacy that we should have, the critical thinking skills that we should have. This is why we are responsible to try to make ourselves as difficult to fool as possible, especially these days. And with AI, of course, we can be basically shown anything and have it look realistic.
Yeah, I mean, oh man, don't even get me started on the deep fake. So maybe if we have to leave it anywhere, is that I should probably be a little more sympathetic to my wacky aunts and uncles who keep sending me articles that I have to tell them are fake.
We should be sympathetic to it, but we should also encourage them to think more critically and to basically be safer as they try to interact with this new world that we've made.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, Professor Nathan Radke, thank you so much for joining me today on Conspiracy Corner. Please check out his podcast. It is called the Uncover Up Conspiracy Cast, which he co-hosts. He is also a cultural history professor at Humber Polytechnic, and he's made me look at conspiracies in a way I never have before, which is to say it all. So thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
At Blinds.com, it's not just about window treatments. It's about you, your style, your space, your way. Whether you DIY or want the pros to handle it all, you'll have the confidence of knowing it's done right. From free expert design help to our 100% satisfaction guarantee, everything we do is made to fit your life and your windows. Because at Blinds.com, the only thing we treat better than windows is you. Visit Blinds.com now for up to 50% off with minimum purchase plus a professional measure at no cost. Rules and restrictions apply.
Smart, sharp, and slightly unhinged. Late Night's Fresh Perspective. The Last Show with David Cooper.
I'm Caitlin Green in for David Cooper, and now on The Last Show, a segment that David has illogically titled Pet Talk or maybe Vet Talk. It features a man with his own podcast that is logically titled Vet Life. He has a name that sounds, to me, like a doctor from a 90s soap opera, but he's a real doctor in the year 2025. Dr. Cliff Redford is back. He's holding a dog appropriately. You're holding a dog right now while we speak.
Isn't she cute? She's adorable.
She's really cute. She is a brown, if I had to guess, and again, I'm no expert. She is a brown and white with little spots, Jack Russell.
Yeah, she's a Jack Russell Corgi cross. They call them Kojaks, and I'm boring her right now. She just let out a big yawn. They're called Kojaks, and I did some volunteer work. Twice I've done volunteer work up in Iqaluit, and half of the animals in Iqaluit, half of the dogs are Corgi crosses. Corgis
Really?
cross with anything.
Why are corgis so popular there?
Well, there's two stories. One is hundreds of years ago, some adventurous dog sledder went from community to community, and he had a stud of a corgi with him who would just jump into the community, party for the weekend, and then come out and ride and let the huskies pull the sled. The other joke is that, or the other legend is that Queen Elizabeth used to occasionally go up to the Arctic, and she can't control her sons. So why do you think she could control her corgis? So there you go. And we have a second rescue named Bo, and Bo is a Corgi Shepherd cross.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I have friends who have corgis, and because I have a 3-year-old child, I can't have one because, as I learned from them, because they also have children, they are drawn to herding, and so they will nip at their kids' heels.
Yeah, generally the kids deserve it, though. That's my opinion.
Yeah, do you have kids?
I do have children, but they're all adults now. They actually helped me adopt this little girl. Brandon wanted to take her home, but it just didn't really work out with his lifestyle. So now he just gets to visit her. It's perfect. Corgis definitely have a herding sort of mentality. Look, you can train it out of them. Any purebred dog sort of has like an intense drive or an intense purpose. So you got to select the right one for you, but you could train it out of them.
I had a French bulldog, and I don't know what her purpose was other than to somehow find wayward socks and cigarette butts in every park that we went to. She was like a homing device for those two specific items. I don't know how she found a sock in like Trinity Bellwoods Park in Toronto, Queen West, but she did. She'd find it, and I'd have to pry it out of her mouth every time we left the house. Other than that, I don't really know what she did. I heard that French bulldogs are a very popular breed, I think, in recent years especially, but were originally the companion dogs of French prostitutes.
I guess. I'm not sure. They are just companion dogs, and they are by far the most popular purebred right now. Unfortunately, David and I have had some conversations. I could just end it with that. Unfortunately, David and I have had conversations. Unfortunately, we've had conversations about how unhealthy French bulldogs are. People aren't prepared for it. The problems. And a lot of purebred dogs come with, that's the issue. Like, I see a purebred dog and I get a list of genetic disorders listed in my head. That's what I think of. I'm like, oh, great. You're going to have this. You're going to have this. You're going to have this. So instead I get these mixed breed rescues that seem to be really healthy, but are just a pain in the rear. sometimes.
She just yawned again. The dog that Dr. Cliff is holding just yawned
She's
again.
like, I've heard this before. I've heard this complaint.
Well, I do follow, or at least I'm served a lot of content from vets on TikTok, and one of them, a very popular category of content that they'll frequently create because it's sticky, it's sort of hot takey, is breeds that they would never get, and one of them is frequently very top of the list is a French bulldog because they'll call them affectionately a practice maker as a vet, meaning you're going to see them so much and they're going to cost people so much money that it'll like make your whole practice. And as the former owner of one, I can co-sign that statement. That is completely accurate. She did have a lot of health issues. She was lovely, but obviously, like you said, with these purebreds, they can have some kind of like, I don't know, dare I say defects. And maybe that's why mixing breeds could be useful. There was a piece of information that came out that was going over the popularity of doodles. And I have also a lot of friends who have doodles. And you have a doodle.
I do. Our first dog, she kind of came with my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife. But she got the dog knowing that she had found her forever home in me, the wife, not necessarily the dog. But we got this beautiful Labradoodle named Thalia. And we got Thalia from a breeder that was a breeder of a lot of my patients. And all of these patients were healthy and sweet and smart and adorable. And so she's specifically a Labrador Poodle cross. We see Golden Doodles, Schnoodles, Aussie Doodles, Bernedoodles, Doodly Doodles. I don't know what that is. And then look, back in the day before the Doodle sort of name came out, prefix? No. Postfix? Whatever it is. Subfix?
Portmanteau.
Portmanteau? I don't know.
Maybe.
I'm not sure. I'm a doctor. I'm not good at speaking, even though I'm on the radio. There was like Cavapoos and Multipoos and what I called poos, but are sheepoos. That's what everyone does when anyways. So they're very, very popular. And look, the doodles they're sweet and they're healthy. And I got to say, I don't promote them at all because I cannot build a practice on them whatsoever. I say, go get a French bulldog. I will be able to buy a new car finally. No, I'm just kidding. I prefer my patients healthy. They're super popular. It's this $1 billion industry.
Yeah.
I had a client recently come in, a new client, and they had bought their Labradoodle or Golden Doodle, which is not a purebred, right? Like, obviously.
Yeah.
And they had paid, I'm air quoting, only $7,000. And yeah, $7,000. And this breeder, we went on their website and it was all like glamour shots of these dogs. And they had names and personalities and you could swipe right or swipe left. And they had an option where you could select your dog at 6 or 7 weeks, and then not pick it up until it's 3.5 months old, and they will potty train it, and it will cost you $16,000.
Oh my
$16,000. Like
this is when I think some people have too much money. How hard is it to potty train your dog?
But the thing is, the people that are buying that don't have a lot of money left over. Like that's the problem. So it's this huge market. And look, they are great dogs, but don't pay $16,000 for your dog. I don't care what the situation is. But mixed breed dogs live longer. On average, mixed breed dogs live about 1.5 years longer, specifically because they don't have that inbreeding and sort of genetic defect situation, at least not to a high extent. They are generally smarter, well-behaved, again, just healthier, average, simple dogs. And the doodles are so popular because you can get all these different sizes, 20 pounds all the way up to like 80 pounds, and they don't shed. That's a big thing. They don't shed.
That's the big thing, is they're hypoallergenic. Yeah. I promise you this segment has not been sponsored by the Doodle Breeders of America. I promise you.
Adopt, don't shop. That's what I say.
Yeah. I like that mantra. My guest has been Dr. Cliff Radford. Cliff, can you stick around and also tell me what the ideal stress relieving pet is for seniors over 65? I saw this headline. I'm not yet close to being 65, but the answer did not surprise me. So I'd love to get your take when we come back.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Class is now in session, and the UPS Store is here to help you ace arriving on campus. Our certified packing experts can pack everything you need, from desktops to decor. Plus, when you pack and ship with us, you get our exclusive pack and ship guarantee. Your items arrive safe or your money back. Restrictions and limitations apply. To get a 20% off packing coupon and for full details, visit theupsstore.com/packing.
When the day is done, we're just getting started. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Welcome back to The Last Show. I'm Caitlin Green, in for David Cooper, and we are talking about pets on Pet Talk. Or is it Vet Talk? I mean, I am with a vet. His name is Dr. Cliff Radford. He's one of my favorite people to speak to because even though I don't have a pet currently, I have a toddler, I really enjoy hearing about animals, and I do think that they have improved the quality of life for so many of my friends and family members who have pets. I mean, just about everyone I know is an animal lover in some way. And so I'm always interested to hear about how they improve people's lives. And I know that for people who are senior citizens that find themselves over the age of 60, 65, they're looking for stuff to do. They're looking for someone to take care of. Maybe they have children who are up and grown and they want something cozy and soft to come home to at the end of the day. And so an article I read said that dogs and birds, not so much for people over the age of 65. Instead, the ideal stress relieving pet is a cat. And this doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, cats, it doesn't surprise you. And I mean, pets in general, the studies have been proven over and over and over again that having an animal in your life reduces stress. It reduces your cortisol levels. It reduces depression. It reduces your resting heart rate. If an animal walks into a room, unless you have a phobia, people's blood pressures drop. Like it's absolutely unbelievable. I am waiting for physicians to start prescribing. Go get a pet, and it'll be covered by OHIP. Go get a pet; it'll be covered by OHIP, and then you gotta go to the veterinarian. And it's like this wonderful make work project for me. So with people over 65, look, you got to look at your mobility, your lifestyle. Are you living in a big house? Are you in a smaller place, especially if you're kind of in a semi-retirement type community? Cats are by far the greatest choice. They love you. They give you good companionship. You don't have to take them for a walk. You can leave for a couple of days, and as long as they don't need their insulin injections, the cats, not the people, you can just leave an automatic feeder, and they're fine for a couple of days because they clean up after themselves and they're litter trained, and so it works out really, really well. And it gets people up out of bed, and you need a purpose sometimes, right? Like animals in general probably save lives.
I think so.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like just as a regular pet, we're not talking about a police dog or something, or a search and rescue dog. I'm sure there are a lot of people that are suffering from depression, and, it's still not really supported or understood or appreciated, I guess, in society. And so you have like no reason to get out of bed, but then you have a dog and you got to take him for a walk. You get up out of bed, you go for a walk, you get your sunlight, you start saying hi to your neighbors. Your dog barks at you like mine is now to sort of get involved in the conversation. She's adorable. Thank goodness. So yeah, pets are Mother Nature's recipe for health, I think.
I think cats get painted with an unfair brush, and they're often seen, especially in pop culture and, in like older kids movies and stuff, as the companion of the villain, that they're there being pet and they are evil and they're nefarious. I've never found that to be true at all. I had 2 cats and they were they were sort of street cats that we took in, and strays, and both of them were lovely. They're incredibly affectionate. Nothing to me seems cuter than a cat purring. It's a very relaxing feeling to have a cat just sitting on your lap purring. And I like the fact that they like having you around, but you do get the sense that they don't necessarily need you. So what you were just outlining, that they give you quite a bit of freedom. I mean, if you had to go away for a couple of days, like you said, you set up the feeder. They don't really mind that you're gone, but they're certainly happy when you come home. So I do think this would be a great companion pet for someone over the age of 65 who maybe didn't want to commit to a dog, even though I do think dogs, especially because they force you out of the house and get you walking and talking to people. I mean, dog owners socialize with each other all the time. I see it at off-leash dog parks. I mean, my single friends, they've met people, they've met potential dates when they've been out with their dogs. And I also think it's a nice piece to include in your life. So if you weren't going to recommend a cat necessarily, say someone was allergic, are there any other pets for people over the age of 65 that you as a vet would say, hey, try this?
Yeah, I mean, I would still say consider a dog, but get a senior dog.
Oh.
Especially a smaller senior dog that's, got some arthritis, just like probably the owner's got, and they can all waddle around with their sore hip. You're probably living in a bungalow. Or you got one of those automatic chairs that goes up the stairs. And there are videos out there on TikTok and on Instagram of dogs that know how to jump on the chair to go upstairs because they're too arthritic to climb the stairs. So the real thing is, it's not a specific species, but it's looking at your lifestyle, your abilities, your finances. I mean, that's a reality you have to consider. And as I joke with my father, who's in his late 70s, he says, hey, we're thinking about getting a dog. What do you think? And I'm like, you're going to have to put him in the will because you're not going to outlive that dog. I'm a better veterinarian to the dog than your doctor is to you. So maybe you should get a senior cat instead. And he's like, I don't want to get an animal. So you got to take that into account as well. But I mean, bunny rabbits make great pets. And I mean, people fall in love with their fish. Like they love having fish, especially saltwater. Or as we talked about last week, you could get a pet cockroach or a slug or a spider.
No, I absolutely cannot do that. None of these things are going to happen. And growing up, I wanted a puppy growing up when I was much younger. And I was promised one by my parents. And I started saving up my personal money. And I wanted a beagle very badly, specifically. I liked the way beagles looked. I didn't apparently take into consideration that my mom was an avid gardener and they would probably dig up her garden and that they would howl all the time. But anyways, my parents decided against giving me one for Christmas. So I come downstairs on Christmas morning and I see something wrapped in front of the fireplace. I think it's a puppy in a box. I come to find out that it's gerbils. The disappointment of my life. So I don't know. I think maybe because I wanted a beagle and I wound up with two gerbils and they thought that they were the same sex and they wound up being opposite sex. So they just bred and bred and bred over and over again. And we ended up having a small gerbil colony, kind of against everyone's will. So,
I had, when I was in junior high, I had two gerbils and I packed the aquarium with soil and then I sprinkled seeds over top. And the gerbils dug these tunnels in the soil up against the glass.
Oh, so you could see it.
I could see their sort of life cycle kind of thing. And then one of them escaped. The male escaped. Yep. Maybe it was two males. I don't know, because they never had babies. So there must have been same sex. But one of them escaped and I found it, put it back in, and the other one beat it to death.
Okay. So
I know.
No, they're vicious. Now it's turned into gerbil hour, but I have a trauma to unpack and I have a professional here. Same thing happened to us. We would give away the gerbil babies to a local pet store and they would sell them. And so it was all above board. And eventually we did have to give away the dad gerbil because we just couldn't stand them continuing to breed. But they did escape at one point. We went away on vacation. Somebody was house sitting. They didn't close they didn't close the lid of one of their cages properly. They got out. They got into the air ducts of our house, and a few of them lost their tails. We mostly got them back in. One of them remained free, and we thought had sort of perished. And probably 8 months later, we had an aunt and uncle who were staying in our basement. and the gerbil ran across her hair as she slept, and it had been living off of a bag of bird seed in the basement that it had chewed its way into. Like, they're pretty resourceful, but they are vicious. Like, they'll eat their young straight up. They will eat their young, and they're not very, like, they kind of aren't necessarily that nice to each other. I witnessed a lot of rodent fights happening. I mean, I feel like I took care of them because I felt obligated to, but I can safely say that this was not a pet that I felt particularly attached to.
I think insects as pets is starting to become a good idea, Caitlin. You should consider this.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cliff Redford, for joining and making me feel very lazy.
Cheers.
That's it for The Last Show with David Cooper. I'm Caitlin Green, filling in while he's away on vacation. Thank you so much for spending the evening with me. And if you missed anything or you want to hear more, you can find The Last Show as a podcast wherever you listen or online at lastshow.pizza. And yes, that's pizza, not .com. Don't miss tomorrow's show, where I'm going to be joined by two money experts to talk frugality and how to navigate money in a healthy way in your relationship.
Big Brother is back.
Let's freak it go!
This summer, the game gets hotter, the alliances get trickier, and the blind sides, brutal.
Just a roller coaster of backstabbing and craziness.
New house guests, new twists, same epic drama.
Bro, I'm gunning for you. You're my #1 target.
Who can you trust when everyone's watching?
Game on, baby.
Big Brother. All new Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays on Global. Stream on Stack TV.